All right.
Your Police Accountability Board regular meeting for Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. Public advisory, the PAB has resumed in-person meetings and encourages community members to attend in person. Community members attending in person should observe the health and safety protocols for in-person meetings of Berkeley boards and commissions as outlined by the City of Berkeley. The PAB acknowledges that physical attendance may not be feasible for all community members. To this end, the Office of the Director of Police Accountability has been exploring the option of allowing for remote participation at the PAB meetings. Please note that the ODPA and the PRB are in early stages of implementing this hybrid meeting format, so there is a possibility for technical glitches and errors. Your patience and understanding are greatly appreciated. To access this meeting remotely, join from a PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or Android device using this URL listed below. If you do not wish for your name to appear on the screen, use the drop-down menu and click on Rename to rename yourself to be anonymous. To request to speak, use the raise hand icon on the screen. To join by phone, dial 1-669-900-6833 and enter meeting ID 826-5359-6072. If you wish to comment during the public comment portion of the agenda, please press *9 and wait to be recognized. And we would like to acknowledge the Berkeley Land Acknowledgements and move to our agenda call to order. First item on our agenda, our roll call to order. Excuse me.
Okay. With that said, Chair Moore.
Here.
Vice Chair Harris.
Here.
Board Member Calavita.
Here.
Board Member Leftwich.
Here.
And Board Member Wilson is absent at the moment. On behalf of the ODPA, we have Director Aguilar, Investigator Wechter, and myself, Jose Murillo. On behalf of the BPD, I see Captain Durbin and Lieutenant Reese. And on behalf of the City Attorney's Office, we have DCA Chang. All right, we have quorum.
Thank you very much and welcome everyone. This brings me to agenda item 2, approval of the agenda. Is there any changes? Would we like to make any notes? Please, Board Member Leftwich.
Yes, I would move to defer consideration of item 11D, which is review of commendation nominations for sworn officers of the department. We have a very lengthy agenda tonight, and I think our closed sessions are going to take a long time, and this was given 10 minutes, which I think is really unrealistic. I think it's more likely to take 30 minutes, at a minimum. And so I would move that it be deferred until our next meeting and that it be heard as the first agenda item under new business so we can give it the attention it deserves. I'm also not clear about what 11F is exactly. But 10 minutes doesn't seem like much time for that either, if it's at all substantive, but in any event, I'll find my motion just to
11D.
Yeah.
Can we get a second on that motion?
a second.
Okay, so we have a first and a second on the motion to defer item 11D to the next regular meeting and make it the first item under new business, or rather old business in that case. Are there any objections to the motion?
Not seeing or hearing any objections, we'll go ahead and adopt that.
Any additional changes?
Yeah, any additional changes? Thank you, keeping me on time. I like it. No? All right, excellent. So with the, the motion is,
Or rather, we need the motion for the agenda.
So can I get a motion to approve the agenda with its changes? Right.
Okay.
So you're hearing no objection, we're gonna go ahead and adopt. Which brings us to public comment.
Okay. So we will go ahead and start with the members of the public who are physically present that would like to provide public comment. I will then move on to our virtual attendees. With that said, are there any members physically present that would like to provide public comment? Okay. With that said, there are no folks here in the public that would like to provide public comment at this time. Are there any attendees that are virtually present that would like to provide public comment? And I will provide a few more seconds just in case anybody would like to speak to provide public comment. Chair, at this time, we have no speakers with their hands raised.
Okay, which will take us to agenda item number 4, which is closed session.
Okay. So members of the public, both physically present and attending virtually, we will be breaking for a closed session. You're allowed to remain here while the board convenes. Members of the public will simply pause the recording and you're allowed to continue within the webinar and we'll reconvene at the end of the session.
We have a separate room.
Call to order. This is the end of our closed session, which brings us to agenda item number 5. Number 6, the approval of the minutes for regular meeting of June 7th, 2023. Do we need to make any changes? Any comments?
Remember that, which is usually the one who does
This is true.
And
I
I
have
feel it's
just a question.
is this like standard city practice to have these kind of detailed minutes versus just action minutes? Like, these minutes are extremely detailed, the meetings are recorded, right? We have access to the recordings.
Yes.
So like a lot of other jurisdictions are just doing action minutes. Do we need to have minutes like this? Because it's a lot of work, I'm sure, to prepare and to review.
I think the reason the minutes got a bit longer than they were before was because we had a lot of community interest for slightly longer minutes. And that's where we've sort of made the pivot to make sure that we had more detailed minutes. But it's more of appeasing to the community.
Even though the recordings are available and posted.
Mhm.
I think it was also helpful because we would be making often requests to the city attorney's office and requests to the department. And I think it was a more helpful way for us to keep track of them rather than having to go listen to the recordings.
But those would be an action that we don't need to spend a long time on it, but I feel like these minutes are too much and it's like, I'd rather spend my time reviewing the actual substance of our materials. And I think given the prevalence of meeting recording now, we're seeing just a lot of action minutes, which would include directives to other departments. And we have shorter minutes, so that would be my.
I would love to discuss. Okay, go ahead, Director.
Just one quick point in, the PRC, PAB has had this discussion, and you can see the minutes, how they changed throughout time. I think we're happy to support whatever, certainly from the staff end, I think would be helpful. One potential thing is to utilize the technology more. We have video recorded. We can also create a direct transcript of it and have that available and then do the more summarized minutes. And that way we can kind of get both the best of both worlds, having the transcript, the video, and the summarized minutes.
Okay, I think that's something that we should discuss and maybe we put on an agenda in the future. Right now, I'm gonna ask again, is there any changes or adaptations to the minutes? Or can I get a motion to approve and keep moving?
Okay, on the motion to approve the minutes.
Not
first and
seeing
second.
or hearing any objection, let's go ahead and make that bona fide.
Okay.
And that brings us to agenda item number 7, ODPA staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. I would like to defer for the first item to our policy analyst. We attended a webinar that he did, and just if we can give just a summary of that meeting.
Yeah, so the CCOA, and I'm sorry, could you remind me of the exact acronym again?
The California Civilian Oversight Alliance.
It's one of the more recent bodies within California. It's an alliance of the civilian oversight agencies across the state. They're primarily based out of San Francisco. They had a meeting this last Tuesday where they covered a variety of topics. The most interesting one was essentially a discussion about the different training resources that were available out there for boards. and essentially a movement to start compiling, especially those that are free or low cost, to make them readily available in a data source. Of course, the San Francisco oversight body also had the opportunity to explain a bit more about what their internship program looks like and the different levels that they offer it in, and the impact that that's had in their work and easing a lot of, I guess, their staff responsibilities, while also giving a great education opportunity and just planting the seeds of civilian oversight practitioners moving forward. And that was the gist of the meeting.
Nice.
Thank you. The other thing, just wanted to recap, we had a presence at the Juneteenth Festival. We had board members and staff attend, and I think it was a really good turnout from the community. Community members very receptive to our tent. They stopped by, asked questions, we engaged in some meaningful conversations. We're trying to make sure that we're at these community meetings and have a presence there. So that's something that we'll continue to do. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything from their reflections or.
I'll do it
Okay.
in my chair report.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
The surveillance technology policies, they were adopted by council. They did include part of their discussions a provision that allows and ensures that the ODPA, the PAB's presence is in the language there, so there's no ambiguity there. I don't know, the city attorney, from my understanding, the office was the one that recommended that language. Is that correct, or?
Which language?
In the surveillance, the fixed surveillance cameras, the council included language about the police accountability
yes.
board.
That was proposed by the office to clarify that the board has access to those.
Thank you. So just want to give that quick update on that. The ALPR policies, we had the special meeting, as you know, and probably board members will also provide their reports on that. The board members voted to provide a recommendation that was provided to the Public Safety Committee, and we had the opportunity to go before the Public Safety Committee yesterday. Board member Calavita and I went before the board. The chair was also present remotely, providing feedback to me. And one of the things that we try to emphasize based on the letter that was submitted, that there seemed to be a need for more clarification about how this technology is actually going to be utilized, the locations, more clarification about some of the thresholds that we're going to have to meet to utilize it, particularly language around reasonable suspicion and probable cause. More of an emphasis on the empirical support for utilizing this technology. So right now it's a little bit ambiguous. They have anecdotes about in cases where it could have been helpful for the department, but there isn't a deep analysis of the data and how will it solve the different crime problems and patterns that the city is experiencing. So that was the essence, I think, of the communication. The Public Safety Committee appeared to be receptive to the feedback provided by the board. They were asking questions, follow-up questions. Board member Calavita provided further clarification on the concern about reproductive rights and what that could mean for members or people that come through our city, and whether that data is going to be given to other jurisdictions that don't have the same philosophies and the same protections that we do here in the city of Berkeley. I want to stop there. Any board members want to add anything?
So what happened?
So they issued as I understand it is, it was Director Aguilar and myself, and from what I understood of the final motion, it was that they were going to give a qualified thumbs up to the department's acquisition and policy, but that there was work to be done on those documents. That's kind of what I understood.
Yeah.
And I think it's also, I mean, I don't know how the board feels about this, but I feel like our response to those documents was kind of twofold. One was the most general question of whether or not these 52 cameras could be supported, the acquisition of these cameras should be supported as a technology. And the other was the improvements that need to be made on the specific documents. And there's sort of two levels. And it was my understanding at our meeting that we had concerns about both levels. And but it seemed to me that the Public Safety Committee was more or less okay with the first level, although it wasn't presented that way. But that the documents needed to be improved before they came to full council. What do you think, Director? Is that your understanding?
Yes, and just more on the specifics, they're interested in having it before full council on July 25th. So they're given essentially a month to be able to work out some of these different things that the board has brought up.
And do we expect to get it back then before then? So we can
Yeah, there,
revise policy?
the expectation is that there's dialogue between that meeting and the next one, so. The board is, the department is going to agendize it for the 25th, but in the interim, they're going to be providing the updates to the policy and sharing it with the board.
I wasn't clear on that. And what date that would be.
That, I don't think that there were any specifics, but I think the expectation was between here and the 25th.
It's an August recess. They're trying to get in before that.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yes, so moving away from that discussion. As we'll note later down the agenda, just some staff updates, we do have one of our staff members retiring. And we'll have a more formal discussion about that. We have also been engaged in a panel interview selection process for the data and policy analysts. We're hoping to make a decision on that soon. Very qualified candidates that think they could come into the role and hit the ground running. So we're hopefully have some updates on that process and keep you updated on that. Also, we are having I'm having our office, the ongoing discussions with the budget request for additional staff. There was initial support from the budget committee for the investigator position. And there is, they wanted subsequent or more information, supplemental information about the communication specialist. So I'm providing an updated report to council for them to consider. But at least for the additional investigator, there was initial support for it. And I know one of the board members asked what would that mean if they only gave one or the other. It doesn't seem like they flat out rejected the idea of a communication specialist, more so that they were more likely, or they signaled in my interpretation, that an investigator would potentially be provided in the next budget cycle. They might fund for the communication specialist, but that's something that the council will still need to decide, the full council. We're also in the process of securing a permanent location, because with the new staff selections, we're going to need more space, and we have identified a location that I think meets the needs of the office, the board, and the community. It could potentially have us in an office location that has a meeting room, so we won't have the situation where there's some confusion about meeting rooms. And I think that that's helpful to have a permanent presence in the community that way. The location we're looking at, it was a location that was utilized by the PRC decades back. So it's a returning home kind of situation, but we're just gonna have some upgrades. We will potentially be going into closed sessions, negotiations with that, with the facilitation of the city attorney's office. So hopefully we get the council support on that. And I think that's all the updates I have for you.
No question.
Please.
I'm not sure where this stood, but I think the mayor a long time ago had raised the issue of having a pool of members of the public who could serve on our subcommittees. And where does that stand? I'm not sure if that was in your office or where, but we really need to get that process finalized.
Agreed, please.
Thank you, I'm glad that you brought that up. We did an agenda for this meeting. One of the things we're doing in that process where we promoted the positions for the members of the public to serve on subcommittees. Some of the applications went to the clerk, some of the applications went to us. So the reason we didn't agendize it yet, just want to make sure we reconcile all the documents. But we did receive some, we have some members of the public that have expressed interest. If you allow us with the next agenda, we'll be able to give you an update. So one of the things we received some interest for the downtown bike task force subcommittee. At that time, there was no appointments made, but that's around the time we were promoting the subcommittee applications.
So it's up to us. I was unclear. Somehow that the council was gonna be involved. It's just something that's up.
There was a point where they wanted to develop a pool of participants, and they wanted them to be vetted
For
But-
subcommittees?
for
Yeah.
subcommittees,
Yeah.
yes. But at this point, I don't know if they've moved any, we took up that mantle and the director and the office moved forward, but
Oh,
their pool program is still stagnant from what I understand. Don't quote me, but that's what I intend to know. We good? All right, so I'm gonna move to agenda item number 8, which is chair and board members report. First, I'd like to acknowledge the passing of Mayor Gus Newport. He passed on June 18th. And I just thought that was something that this board should acknowledge. Not only was he a champion of this work and he worked with the PRC, but he was a Berkeley legend and should be acknowledged in this meeting. That also being said, I'd also like to acknowledge the great work that this office did at Juneteenth Festival. The reason that I'm just transitioning is from Gus to Juneteenth is he was also a great supporter of Juneteenth. It is the oldest Juneteenth celebration in the country. And I don't know if we celebrate that enough, but we should. And that being said, there was thousands of people. It was the largest celebration in at least a decade. And that's from my just living on the block. So it was very exciting for me to see this South Berkeley Renaissance and a homecoming. So I wanted to say, one, I appreciate the work you guys did. Our presence was felt. Shout out to Berkeley Police. You guys were out there and the vibe was cool. Everybody had a great time. And I look forward to next year and more of us being available. I know the whole multiple holidays on a weekend and travel and summer is tough. But I'm telling you guys, it's really worth it. And I want to thank all the board members who did come out and support. That was big.
so you did a great job. Jose has a real knack for community outreach.
He does.
Thank
He
you. Thank
does. And that being said, I also, I'm almost good with my acknowledgements. I want to thank you guys for not only that, but for Tuesday and the public safety meeting. I had lost my voice at Juneteenth. So I wasn't going to be that great on the ground, but I was there remotely, but the office and board member Calvita really did a great job, and not only explaining where our positions and our concerns lie, but why we are Berkeley and the things we take into consideration matter, and reproductive rights mattered, and that was something that no one had thought about, and board member Calvita made that a point. So I just want to acknowledge that and recognize that stuff. It's cool to me. At the same time, I want to ask the office, I say great things and I'm saying, hey, I got work for you guys. I need you to reach out to every council member who does not have a person on this board and say, once again, I need you to put people up. We are going to be facing the August recess very soon, which means that we will be in the weeds come September, and we are still at half capacity. So I got into a lot of board members' ears at Juneteenth and told them, hey, we need these positions filled. We've got a lot of work to do. And we were met with the they were meeting our moment. They understood this is something we have to get done. And, you know, I explained, my people are tired, run ragged, worn, torn. So please, you know, can we make sure we reach out one more time? And anything that I can do to help that process, you guys let me know. And that's all for my comments. Besides, again, I'm going to say thank you, everybody, for your energy and effort. I do appreciate it. I'm going to open up to any board members who have anything they'd like to say at this time.
Can I just ask, does the mayor also have an appointment?
He does. He has the alternative. And I made it.
No, he has-
Nobody has a regular appointment. He has a
Uh,
regular appointment,
Are you
absolutely.
sure? Oh,
Izzy was.
Izzy was his appointment. That's correct.
Oh,
So the board picks the alternative? Is
The
that-
full council.
Full council. Full council, that's what I meant, excuse me. So the full council picks the alternative. So those are two right there where they should be able to knock out of the box. Just saying, it's not as hard as. All right,
And individual board members may reach out to the mayor. I've done that myself a few times. Try to nudge him.
thank you. Yeah, I gave him a nudge myself at Juneteenth. That being said, does anybody else have anything they want to add, include? This is our time. And
I
I'm,
just want to say, you know, as a new board member, I was really impressed by how we came together very quickly on the, get the acronym wrong.
ALPRs.
Yeah, the LPR policy.
Yeah.
I thought we, and I'm very sorry I couldn't attend the meeting. It's really hard for me to attend meetings during the actual work hours. But, nonetheless, I tried to contribute, and I'm just appreciative of those of you that could attend, and I thought I was impressed with what we pulled together.
And your comments were helpful.
yes, very much so. Everybody, all right, I'm gonna move on, which takes us to agenda item number 9, the police, chief of police report. Hello, Captain Durbin, how are you?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks.
Evening.
Thank you. We'll start with staffing where we normally start. We did bring on a police officer this month who is an academy graduate. So that person is in field training now, and we will not need to send him to a police academy. And tomorrow we're heading out to Sacramento. We have 2 officers graduating from the Sacramento Police Academy who will enter field training next week. When officers in the academy or field training, though, they already count towards our total authorized number. So our current staff number of 149 will not go up, but that does bring us that much closer to having trained officers who are potentially covering our beats and allowing us to backfill open assignments. So, for example, right now we have 3 open detective positions and we have 3 open motor positions. So 2 Mondays ago, we on to dispatch and where we're at with dispatchers. 2 Mondays ago, we had a very successful dispatcher open house. It was our second one this year, and we had over 20 people come by to learn more about that position. And so we hope that at least half of those numbers, or half of the 20, at least 10 people will come in and apply, and we'll get that number up of dispatchers, because we're currently down 13 dispatchers, and so we're at about 20. I think we're at 23 and we're authorized 36, so we are down 13 right now. Cases of interest and crime trends. 2 weeks ago, there was a commercial robbery via gun in the 1200 block of San Pablo Avenue, and during the investigation, a suspect vehicle license plate was discovered and entered into the system as a felony vehicle. Alameda PD's LPR had several hits on this vehicle in the same area on multiple days, and our detectives then set up in the area based on those hits, and they were able to make a stop and arrest the driver. So the arrested suspect also confessed to the Berkeley robbery as well as robberies in Albany and Emeryville. Last week, another significant case, we had a carjacking in the 2200 block of McGee via gun. The suspect took the victim's vehicle, but it was recovered a short time later in Berkeley unoccupied. Officers located the suspect nearby, and he was arrested and later confessed to our detectives. And you may have seen a press release we just recently put out. There was a kidnapping in the early morning hours this morning on College near Haste. We did put that press release out just a few hours ago. We're requesting specifically that 2 Good Samaritans who assisted the victim, they come forward and contact our special victims unit, and that is an ongoing investigation. The most significant or notable crime trend that I noticed as we reached the halfway point in the year is with auto thefts. We've had over 600 vehicles stolen this year, and last year at this same time we had just under 400. So that's a really significant increase in stolen vehicles. In regards to policies and just any other general updates, I think Director Aguilar and Board Member Calavita described our work yesterday on LPRs at the Public Safety Policy Committee and the work we have in front of us very, very well. We will be submitting an action item tomorrow, and with the hopes of getting it in front of council on July 25th. But as Director Aguilar and Board Member Calavita pointed out, we still have work to do with the board, coming to room where we can to adjust the policy, make it more in line with the recommendations of the board. Our annual report on military equipment pursuant to Assembly Bill 481 and our own policy 709 will be submitted this week. So that, again, that's another item that we're hoping to get in front of council on July 25th. The PAB will receive a courtesy copy of that report before the 25th. When you do receive it, you'll notice that it's very, very similar to the 2022 Police Equipment and Community Safety Ordinance Annual Report that was approved by the Police Accountability Board and Council I believe just a couple weeks ago. It's almost like a lesser included report if you look at it. It's focused on uses of equipment as opposed to the deployment that we had in the city ordinance report. On Friday, we held a memorial for the 50-year anniversary of the death of Sergeant Jimmy Rutledge. He was the last, I'm knocking on wood, the last Berkeley police officer killed in the line of duty. Quite a few of his family members and co-workers attended to pay their respects and share memories. It was a very nice event. They were also given an opportunity to take a tour of the building. Obviously, all the people that worked with Sergeant Rutledge, they never worked in this building, and many had never even seen it. Tonight and tomorrow at the North and South Berkeley Senior Centers, our Traffic Bureau is hosting classes designed for seniors called Drive Safer, Drive Longer. Those classes are funded through the California Office of Traffic Safety and are part of the educational component of the grant we receive annually. That work is also in line with the tenets of Vision Zero. The Traffic Bureau is planning additional training and education related to bicycle safety in the future. I don't know the exact dates, but they told me that's forthcoming. The Northern California Special Olympics torch run passed through Berkeley today. About 10 BPD officers participated in the torch run today, picking up the torch from Albany and running through Berkeley to UC Berkeley, where UCPD picked up the torch and carried it, I presume, to Emeryville PD. I also, on that topic, I want to give specific credit to our own Sergeant Jen Coates. She's on the Northern California Executive Board for Law Enforcement Torch Run for Special Olympics. She's been holding that position for roughly 10 years, and she dedicates a considerable amount of her personal time to that fantastic cause. I do not have any specific deliverables or items that I think I need to follow up on, but I'm here for anything that you want to bring to my attention.
Board Member Leftwich.
Yes, thank you, Captain Durbin, for that report. I just had some thoughts about trainings, because you know the board has certain training requirements and we still haven't met those. So we're always looking for new training opportunities. And I, for one, would be interested in a training from the department about the laws and policies around stops, kind of along the continuum of contact between officers and members of the public, whether it's stops, detentions and arrests, Miranda warnings, that sort of thing. And then I thought it might be interesting to hear from the department, and not necessarily tonight, but just around any topics that you think that would be helpful for our board to be trained on, that could help us do a better job.
So you said continuum on stops, detentions, arrests, how an officer proceeds through that process, or I know that you're doing the Flexi trainings now, correct? Or you're receiving those?
We did have one of those, right, but I guess and again, it's my own, lack of training on these issues, you know,
Uh-huh.
when you're required to do Miranda warnings and, what the
Okay.
obligations are around what's a stop versus a detention versus arrest, you know, the really basic, stuff, and I characterize it as a continuum of contact, but I don't know if that's probably not how you would characterize it, so I might not have my terminology correct, but that's the
No, it's fine.
concept.
Okay, no, I just, and that wasn't a terminology, so I just wanted to make sure I understood what the ask was. Okay, yeah, I'll think about it. Are you thinking more of a in-person one-on-one, or do you want to be directed to something that we think is good training that we might even send our officers to?
I hadn't thought it through, so I guess whatever you think would be appropriate, I mean, not one-on-one, but having somebody come to us and do a training is helpful because
Okay.
they, you know, ask questions. And that doesn't need to be real long, you know, maybe half an hour or so, but again, I just wanted to put it out there.
Okay, oh, thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a question. I just wanted to ask a question about the auto thefts, the huge increase. Is there any particular areas where the thefts are occurring, and any ideas as to why it's increased so much in the last year? And yeah, and because it's almost like 100 auto thefts a month, right?
Is it the Kias?
Yeah, Kias and Hyundais, that those increased dramatically in April of this year.
Hmm.
I don't know about specific areas. That's probably something that can be gleaned from the Transparency Hub, but I'd have to take a closer look. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Those cars have increased, Kias and Hyundais have increased in theft because there's a TikTok movement that have taught kids how to steal them.
Oh, no.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's a lot of.
thank
this.
you. That was my only question.
Okay, any other questions, concerns, things we want to get, Director?
One quick thing, Captain, I know that National Night Out is coming in August. I don't know if historically the PRC has participated, but is that potential opportunity to raise more awareness, or what are your thoughts on any board presence in that community event?
Cannot recall what we've done with the board in the past, but I think there's room for us to collaborate there. Yeah, it's August 1st, I believe, off the top of my head, but yeah, we could continue that conversation about what that would look like. But yeah, we usually get to 30, 40 something events. There's quite a few. But we split them all up. But yeah, that's something that yeah, we should continue that conversation on how we can work together there.
All right. Last call. Anybody else that has a question for Captain Durbin? Now is the time. Not seeing or hearing any, Captain Durbin, I would like to thank you for your time, and we appreciate it.
Of course, anytime. Good to see all of you. Thank you.
Have a good one. All right, that takes us to agenda item number 10, which is subcommittee reports. And I'm going to start with Board Member Calvita for policies and practices relating to downtown task force and bike unit allegations.
So we met last Wednesday. The committee consists of Chair Moore and me. And of course, the director and policy analyst Maria were there. And we discussed various policies and their possible modifications in the context of the downtown task force incidents. And we will be bringing several of those to you, our recommendations on several of those in the next few weeks.
Thank you, Board Member Calvita. Board Member Harris, is there any updates to the body worn camera policy subcommittee?
No updates yet. We're gonna be meeting on Friday
Okay.
to, basically, we're meeting to hash out our edits and additions that we'd like to see.
Nice.
And then we'll be taking that back to BBB.
Love it.
I had a thought, I mean, unfortunately, because of the size of our board, we can't have 3 subcommittees, 3 board members on the subcommittee. And we were hoping with the body worn camera policy to get it back to our full board before the recess in August, which may not be practical. But I know that board member Harris has to do some traveling, and so she can't attend some of the meetings we were hoping to have. And it occurred to me that I'm wondering if it makes sense, given our size, to have like alternates on some of these subcommittees, because otherwise we can't meet if one person is not available.
It's not a bad idea. Should we check out the legality with that, with the Brown Act? Can we do alternates?
So how would it work?
Well, so we'd say Alavita is gonna be the alternate on the body worn camera subcommittee. So she won't attend the meetings of board member Harris and I, but if one of us can't attend, then she can sub in so that we can get the work, continue the work.
Right, so as long as the meeting of the subcommittee does not have 3 or more members, 2 members can,
Even though they're not the same two.
yes.
So we can do alternates.
Great idea, Board Member Leftwich.
And as soon as we have people who are willing to be on.
Right, we asked now.
Yeah,
Have to be agenda.
Yeah, we'll have to agendize that, but go ahead.
Okay, if I can just-
Okay. Director would
Just
like
a
to,
clarification,
Yeah.
do they have to formally designate them as an alternate, or can they just be like, hey, I'm not gonna? How does that work?
Is the idea that you would designate people as like rotating alternates?
Well, I think for specific committees,
Yeah.
so that they
there's still
at
more.
least have some background, so, and then we could. I mean, we provide updates of these meetings, but they could have the materials.
Yeah, let me,
So it just occurred to me tonight, but I'm just thinking this is very difficult with such a small
Yeah.
group.
let me review this with my colleague who's the expert on Brown Act, before I give you a conclusive answer. I know my general understanding is that, you know, as long as you don't have a majority of the board meeting, that it's okay, but, if you actually designate 3 members,
That might be
it problematic, so.
Fair
Well,
enough.
it's designating alternate, so it's not designating.
We'll have to dig in, I think.
So let me just make a note of this.
Okay,
Subcommittee, designating alternates. And then I will consult with the colleague who is the expert on actions.
These are ad hoc.
Right, I ought to, but maybe we
Great.
get back those.
Yeah, so she will.
one meeting. No. So actually, this is a great segue, Board Member Leftwich, into conflict of interest subcommittee report.
Yeah, nothing to report right now. I would just note that on page 14, that subcommittee lists Chair Moore and me, and its chair is Board Member Harris.
Okay.
But we're on that, but it's the same issue,
Mhm.
you know, there, as far as alternates.
Okay, so we're gonna keep moving. We've got some,
Ask a question, on our last meeting, I think I asked about the fair and partial subcommittee.
Yes, and we named you.
Right.
Oh, you put them on. Okay, I think we're gonna look to schedule a meeting.
Yeah,
How that
so, yeah,
Okay, all right.
I've been underwater, but regarding the list of committee members, the fair and impartial lists 3 members, which is not allowable,
Okay.
and only I am correct. And it's Board Member Wilson
Mhm.
with me,
Right.
yeah, and then we still have to do a meeting, and I wanted to get together with you and talk background. Yeah.
Okay. I'll go ahead and make those changes.
thank you. All right, so with those edits and everything being said, I'm gonna go ahead and move us out of agenda item number 10 to agenda item number 11, new business. And that brings us to A, adoption of resolution recognizing Maritza Martinez for 24 years of service to the city of Berkeley. Staff, please.
just Chair, we do have former Director Lee, so we would ask if the board would entertain a
Of
motion.
course, we will suspend the rules to let former Director Lee speak.
Okay. So just before we begin, Maritza wasn't able to join us tonight, but she did provide me with a quick note that she wanted me to read to everyone before we proceed with this item. So I'll go ahead and start. So a note from Maritza Martinez, June 21st, 2023. To those who don't know me, I'm originally from Lima, Peru, and immigrated to this country at age 24. I am most grateful to the city of Berkeley for the opportunity to serve its community for 24 years. I was educated in a Catholic bilingual school all throughout grade and high school, received a diploma as a bilingual secretary from St. Anthony's School in Lima, continued adult school and attended community colleges in Contra Costa County pursuing a business and accounting degree. Thanks to the city, I was able to put my son through St. Mary's College in Moraga, where he obtained his accounting bachelor's degree. He is currently an assistant controller. Also, I was able to buy 3 houses. I'm very proud of those accomplishments. I want to take the opportunity to thank all the managers and the department heads I worked with here. Former late Ron Brown in HR, Alex Schneider in environmental health, Barbara Attar, late Dan Silva, Victoria Udby, Liliana Mayers, Lucinda Simpson, and Kathleen J. Lee in the Police Review Commission, and currently Hansel Aguilar in the Department of Police Accountability. Now I'm ready to turn the page and start the next chapter in my life. I'll be traveling back and forth, mostly between Lima and the United States, visiting my son and 6 wonderful grandchildren, family, and friends. It has been a pleasure working with you all. Best regards, Maritza Martinez. Okay.
In terms of procedural, steps, do you want me to read the resolution or do you want to, other comments that you want to do?
Well, I was gonna go ahead and let you guys run with it. So
Okay.
whatever's comfortable with you, this.
I did prepare a memo just to provide the context for the resolution. As you just heard, from the letter, dear Maritza is, retiring from the city. So I wrote a memo, to bring your attention to the notification of the staff retirement at the Office of Director of Police Accountability. Maritza Martinez, currently serving at the ODPA Office Specialist, has announced her retirement effective June 23rd. I have drafted a resolution to recognize and commend Maritza Martinez for her exceptional 24 years of service to the city of Berkeley. Maritza has displayed unwavering commitment and dedication throughout her tenure, making significant contributions to civilian oversight in Berkeley. Maritza's outstanding service spans over 2 decades, during which she has provided invaluable support to the Police Review Commission, the Office of Director of Police Accountability, and the Police Accountability Board. Her professionalism and expertise have been evident in all aspects of her work, where she has consistently upheld the principles of transparency, accountability, and justice. Moreover, Maritza's contributions to civilian oversight have played a vital role in fostering trust and strengthening the relationship between our community and law enforcement agencies. Tireless efforts have significantly advanced policies and practices that promote fairness, equity, and protection of civil liberties within the city of Berkeley. In light of Maritza's remarkable leadership, integrity, and passion for promoting justice, I've drafted a resolution to recognize and commend her exceptional service. This resolution aims to express our deepest gratitude and extend heartfelt thanks to Maritza for her unwavering dedication. I kindly request your support in approving and presenting this resolution to Maritza Martinez. Additionally, we plan to send copies of the resolution to the mayor, all members of the city council, and the city manager to ensure that Maritza's outstanding contributions are acknowledged by the entire city administration. I do want to just emphasize that, she doesn't come to the meetings, but there's a lot of work that gets done in our office that is facilitated by Maritza. She wears a lot of different hats. The office specialist position, it's very broad in the work that she was doing, especially as we transitioned from the PRC to the ODPA. Some of the stuff was joint contributions by the city manager's office under the PRC, but under the ODPA, a lot of stuff was solely within the wheelhouse of Maritza, and I think she adapted well to the transition and was supporting us. Definitely me in my transition into the city and to the area. She was always trying to provide me with historical knowledge about how things were done. She assisted Jose transitioning into the city, assisted Jason, supporting him in his transition, so I do want to make sure we recognize her. I do want to read the resolution that we hope that we get the board support on, and then allow for members of the public to speak about this. So resolution number 0003, resolution recognizing Marisa Martinez for her 24 years of dedicated service to the city of Berkeley. Whereas Marisa Martinez has served the city of Berkeley with unwavering commitment and dedication for 24 years. And whereas Marisa Martinez's outstanding service has included 22 years of devoted support to civilian oversight in the city of Berkeley, starting with her invaluable contributions to the Police Review Commission, and subsequently the Office of Director of Police Accountability and the Police Accountability Board. And whereas Marisa Martinez has demonstrated exceptional professionalism and expertise in her roles, consistently upholding the principles of transparency, accountability, and justice in all aspects of her work. And whereas Marisa Martinez's contributions to civilian oversight in Berkeley have played an instrumental role in fostering trust and strengthening the relationship between the community and law enforcement agencies. And whereas Marisa Martinez's tireless efforts have contributed to the advancement of policies and practices that promote fairness, equity, and the protection of civil liberties within the city of Berkeley. And whereas Marisa Martinez's leadership, integrity, and passion for promoting justice have left an indelible impact on the city of Berkeley and its residents. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Berkeley Police Accountability Board and the Office of Director of Police Accountability hereby recognize and commend Marisa Martinez for her exceptional 24 years of service to the city, and extend its deepest gratitude for her dedicated service to civilian oversight in Berkeley. And be it further resolved that this resolution be presented to Marisa Martinez as a token of the city's appreciation, accompanied by heartfelt thanks and well wishes for fulfilling and successful future. Be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be sent to Marisa Martinez, the mayor of the city of Berkeley, all members of the city council, and the city manager as a testament to the city's gratitude for her exceptional service and dedication. Adopted June 26, 2020.
Awesome.
So at this time, the members of the public interested in speaking, if you could just raise your hand so I could easily identify you. Okay. Former Director Lee, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to see everybody. It kind of almost makes me miss my old job. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I started working with Marisa when I became the PRC officer in 2013, and I was just one of the several PRC officers that she served under. For a long time, the PRC was just a 3-person office. And so as one of the 3, she was a very important cog in the machine that was our office. When I came on board, and I'm going to repeat a lot of the sentiments that you've already heard, but when I came on board, she and Investigator Norris really taught me a lot about how the processes and the procedures work. And, you know, this was on top of just doing her regular duties, and they are many, because we are such a small office, and she is the only office specialist. That means she really does, you know, 1,000 different tasks. She did for the PRC and then for the Office of the Director of Police Accountability and Police Accountability Board. Throughout the years that I worked with her, I watched her learn and adapt as various city systems and programs changed. And there's a lot that the public and even commissioners and board members don't see that goes on internally. And she also adapted to changes in internal processes that a particular PRC officer might want to implement. I would say the most significant changes that Marisa dealt with and did so ably were twofold. One was moving to virtual meetings at the beginning of the pandemic. And the PRC was one of the few commissions that continued meeting right at the beginning of the pandemic. A lot of the other commissions had their meetings suspended, but we carried on. And so this was, new to all the commissions and the staff. And second was the transition from the PRC to the Police Accountability Board and the Office of Director of Police Accountability. And that required a tremendous effort by all staff, Maritza included. So I thank Maritza for all her hard work and dedication to the PRC, Office of Director of Accountability, Police Accountability Board, and the city for 24 years. She deserves her retirement. I also want to point out that she's the one who remembers all the commissioners and board members' birthdays. So you have her to thank for the birthday card that you get from the office. And again, I wish her the best and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Lee.
At this time, are there any other virtual attendees who would like to provide a few comments for Maritza? Okay, there's no additional hands raised.
So we'll stop suspending the rules and get back to new business, which would be 11B, adoption of a resolution.
Sorry, we need a vote on the
Oh,
resolution.
sorry, everyone. Can I get a motion?
The resolution that you mentioned. I second.
Oh, excellent.
Okay,
Do we need a roll call this or not seeing or hearing any objection? Let's go ahead and adopt that.
mhm. Okay.
Now, let's go to 11B, everyone. This is the board adopting NACO's Code of Ethics. We discussed it at our last meeting. We decided to agendize. Are we ready to discuss?
I just had one comment, one suggestion, and that's that the code of ethics be attached to this resolution because it refers to it, but it doesn't say exactly what it is that we're adopting.
It's a great point.
But other than that,
Any other comments? There's a motion on the floor.
Second.
Excellent.
Okay,
Should we do a roll call because we are adopting a code of ethics?
Yes.
So let's get some people on the record here.
okay. So I will proceed with the roll call vote on the motion to adopt the resolution adopting NACO's Code of Ethics. I will start with Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Harris,
Yes.
Board Member Calavita,
Yes.
Board Member Leftwich,
yes.
and Board Member Wilson. There is moved.
Excellent, thank you. Which brings us to 11C, which is the consideration of the proposed procedures for the continuous review commendations. This is the machinations. How are we making the sausage? How are we gonna execute this? We have to go over our packets as a group. How's the best way for us to do so?
I, for one, think that it worked well the last time we did this, which was, I might be in the minority, but it didn't take long because one by one, each person said, I propose these 3 officers or groups of officers for commendation. They're found on page X, Y, and Z. And there was a lot of overlap and it did not take very long. I didn't see a problem with the way we did it. And especially now they're all 5 of us, but in any case, even when there were 9, it didn't take that long. I don't see any other way anyway.
I think that's definitely helpful information. I think for us, the discussion was more on just making sure how frequently we want to have that conversation. The proposal that we had attached in our memo was to do it at the end of, or rather, you'd review the commendations at the last meeting of every quarter, and then you'd officially issue them at the first meeting of the following quarter. So for example, if our meeting's on March 27th and our next meeting's on April 26th, we'd review March 27th, and then at the next meeting, we'd officially recognize it, whether that be through an award or a plaque or some form of recognition. So we'd still go through that process, but we'd have more of a ceremony style at the following meeting. And that was just, again, a proposition from our office.
Do we typically do ceremonies?
We do not.
No,
Mhm.
we don't.
No. Just a consideration, but
Thoughts?
My thought is that it's good to have flexibility and not confine us to it has to be that particular meeting, because sometimes we have a huge agenda and you wouldn't want it to fall on that meeting, and we're supposed to also do commendations.
mhm.
So, you know,
I like the idea though of having them, definitely having them
more frequent.
more frequently. And, but I also am a little hesitant to have something that's too rigid, because this is, the proposal is very specific here about the process. You know, it says that the secretary, I'm not sure who the secretary is. Is it
It's the director.
Direct.
Oh, that's you? Okay. Categorizing the commendations under these categories, they're often overlapping, so that, you know, you might have
Oh, yeah.
one that has 3 or 4 of these, so that seems like an unnecessary step that requires a lot of work. And also, you know, this says, which is consistent, I think, with our standing rules about submitting our nominations in advance. So I don't know if we need to change our standing rules, it doesn't really matter, but we haven't been, our process hasn't been consistent with the standing rules. It has been more, you know, we won't make suggestions about who we think should get the commendation. But we haven't done it in advance. So,
I personally am okay with the schedule. I would not like to see us do some kind of award ceremony, because we keep talking about how much work we have as a board, and I don't think that's a great use of our time. I would value and appreciate any staff workup of the commendation. I've already shared my views on that, so categorizing them, like flagging ones that you think are truly exceptional. I personally would value that and it would be very helpful.
yeah, making recommendations, that would be helpful.
Okay. Go ahead, Director.
If I may, just to the point about a separate ceremony, which I don't think anybody's suggesting here, but it might be something you can work out with the police department. I believe you have, Lieutenant Reeves, do you have some sort of ceremony, annual ceremony?
There is a annual officer of the year ceremony that's sponsored by the police association.
Okay, so that might be some way that you can collaborate with them to potentially present it there. That's, if they're amenable to that.
It'd be nice for us to know who the officer of the year, I've never heard that, but that would be something I think we want to do that.
Is that the only award that's presented at that time, or are there other
We
awards?
have a variety of awards from community service to life saving.
Yeah.
And how are those people determined?
They're nominated by members of the union and then voted on by the directors.
Okay,
Mhm.
and does the chief herself give out?
No.
No.
I think it'd be nice for us to hear about all.
Mhm.
Why don't we make a formal request to the BPA to be in their loop for award season?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, who's the board of directors?
It's the police union board of directors.
Oh, the union board.
Is there anything that the department does? Any type of awards?
Yes, the awards that are sponsored by the department. There's like, quite a few of them. There's like a professional staff of the year, the rookie of the year. Traffic employee of the year, which include our voters and the PDOs. There's another community service award. It's 2 or 3 others.
Are those done at a ceremony or not? Or is this?
They're acknowledged through bulletins and things like that. Their photos are displayed in the front.
Thank you, appreciate that. So I'm gonna go ahead and say this is gonna take some more work, some time for us to figure out what are our next best steps. I hear that we do want some help from the office in streamlining what we are saying are our accommodations we should take a second look at. I believe there's a way for us to find a time for us in this next batch to create a timeline when we can sit down as a group and go over some of these. We've had our packet now for about 6 weeks. Is that about right? I know I've gotten about halfway through, but we put a timeline on that. I think we can go ahead and sit down and spend a half hour working through the accommodations as a group.
I thought we were talking about doing that at our next meeting.
I mean, I'd love to discuss that. That's what we're talking about right now. We haven't agendized that yet, but I'm here saying maybe that's something we could do.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right,
It'd be nice to.
okay. So let's go ahead and agendize 30 minutes for accommodations for our next meeting. So everybody's on notice. Let's get it done. Or at least start looking at it.
We'll just use the more informal prior procedure.
For
now.
this time, yes.
Our standing rules list to criteria.
Perfect. Okay, so that being said, and us moving forward, we are going to 11E, which is the presentation of policy complaint number 2023 PR 0003. Staff.
So again, we do have the complaint itself in the last 4 pages of the packet. I'll go ahead and start with the procedures and within our standing rules, which is that we'll be allowing 5 minutes for the policy complaint to speak, open it up for public comment on the related matters. And then, of course, the department will have an opportunity to address the issue or provide any information that may be useful in solving the inquiry. With that said, may the complainant raise their hand on Zoom just so that I can identify you and allow you the 5 minutes to speak.
Unless they're in person.
I believe they're attending virtually. They did see them earlier. Again, is the complainant here currently within the Zoom webinar? I see initials that may correspond to the complainant.
Why don't we give them 3 minutes?
Mhm.
I'm sorry, to say you're referring to the standing.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's section G of the standing rules.
Is that in the, in the packet?
Is Stanley wasn't television?
Yeah,
No, they're.
okay. Just in the future, if you could link to them.
So you got a hard copy?
Yeah. Thanks.
Can we present it without the complaining have to do or?
We could go ahead and present it. I'll do, again, is if the policy complainant is currently present within the Zoom room, now's the opportunity. Okay, there we go. Oh, sorry, I lost it, but. Okay, the floor is yours. LA, the floor is yours.
I'm sorry, are we at the policy complaint 003? I'm sorry,
Yes.
I'm off of work. So, yeah, I appreciate everyone's time and have been listening to part of the meeting and understand the issues, as relate to staffing and patch and, you know, the increase in crime. And this was not the forum in which I wanted to have this discussion. You know, I just wanted more clarity based on what neighbors had reported as the way we were treated when we called about a property crime in process. So, you know, what my neighbor who called it in, I quote in my list, I really wanted a transcript from the 2 calls and was told I would have to subpoena them because I really did want to confirm the neighbor's allegations that he was hung up on twice. And I wanted more clarity on the episode so that we could manage our expectations here. And the dispatcher denied the allegations of my neighbor, and I didn't really want to continue to speak with him because he was the interested party, and I did not get any feedback from the manager until I called them back. And she backtracked that she would give me any follow-up. And, you know, it was reassuring to hear 6 weeks later after it was called in that actually a car was dispatched, albeit 19 minutes after the original call from the neighbor. So I still would like a transcript. I shouldn't have to subpoena that if the dispatcher behaved professionally and appropriately and wasn't just baiting the neighbor with questions in the dark that they couldn't answer. And it's unfortunate that at no point in time was the neighbor told that anything was going to be dispatched. And it sounded like it was more confrontational than trying to get useful information from a witness to, you know, all of us work together to, you know, address this. And also it was, you know, the dispatcher's response was, you know, there were 6 of these that day. And, you know, in my job, we're all first responders. I'm a physician. And in my job, you know, gosh knows I've seen a lot of sick people through the pandemic and everything. And we do really need to stay professional in our jobs and not roll something into, you know, yet another low grade catalytic converter theft. And, you know, it was a different interaction than I've had with the 2 previous attempts with Walnut Creek PD. And so I have some things to compare with. So I understand all of your challenges. I really do want to know more about how this was handled because I think it really does shake my feeling of what is out there and what is, you know, what things have devolved into in terms of the city. Thank you.
Okay. And do the board members have any questions at this time before I open it up to any additional public comment?
I have a question about with the complainant, and that is I can't discern whether this is really a policy complaint or a complaint about a discourtesy. And what is the policy that is it that you did not receive the transcripts of what took place with the dispatcher?
I found that I submitted this after doing quite a lot of discussing with Officer Yu, who was the one who took the report, as well as leaving messages for who I was told was the dispatch manager, Ms. Jasper. And this was really the only avenue that I had to sort of express my concern about what little information I was getting about the episode. Officer Yu had said that I could request the transcripts, and I went through that. So yeah, I agree with you. I don't know what the policy is that you all have violated, may have violated. But as someone trying to find out more about how this call was handled with a property crime in process, I felt like this was the only avenue that I had. So I suppose my policy concern may not relate to your committee, but more to I don't find it reassuring that Ms. Jasper said that there are any HR issues with dispatcher McLean about the way that this was handled, and they denied that there was a second phone call. So, I would like to see those transcripts.
Yeah, I think there's a few policy issues. One policy question about how does the department or dispatch handle ongoing property calls about a crimes in process. I'm assuming there's a policy, I don't know. And then this issue of getting your transcripts, what do you have access to? Those seem to be two potential policies.
Right. Getting transcripts where you're not the person who was on the call. In other words, this was the complainant's neighbor who called in. Yeah, so the question for us is to whether or not to accept this policy complaint. Am I correct?
Yes.
So we don't have to engage in detailed conversation here as to what, we just have to decide whether to accept it as a complaint.
Mhm.
Are we supposed to hear more public comment?
Yes, and I could check that in a moment. Little bird told me that. At this time, first of all, thank you to the complainant for that information. At this time, are there any other members of the public who would like to provide public comment as it relates to this complaint? And again, if there's any additional public comment relating to this complaint, Chair, at this time, I don't see any additional public comment. The department, if they would like to address some of these questions, does have the opportunity to do so, or perhaps provide any insights into the policies.
Senator Reese, would you like to speak on this or give us any insights? Or?
I can try to answer any questions you want. Sounds like part of the complaint is not liking the way the dispatcher treated them, and part of the complaint might be the response time. As far as response time goes, we do have fewer officers on the street now than we ever have. They actually combined beats and reduced their level of cops per team. So naturally, the calls are not slowing down. So response time is going to go up.
Okay.
You want to add something?
No, I'm gonna move, we accept it as a policy complaint.
Do I have a second?
Is staff though looking for further, we've given us 1 through 5, for these options?
There were considerations, again, now that the board has accepted to take on the complaint, there is now the option as to how would you like to approach it. Those were just some possibilities. Again, not necessarily restricted by the list. But
And not to give any particular board member extra work, but you do have a subject matter expert here, so it's allowing you to leverage your resources, I think is important, but not to give anybody, we're not seeking.
What are you talking about?
The vice chair has considerable experience in the area of dispatch.
Yeah. Although this case may go beyond that.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Is that
I'll
something
accept
you
that.
want to do?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
No, that's fine.
I propose we form a subcommittee to look into this.
that's a
Seconded.
motion. Okay. So
There we go.
Do we need another member of the
Yes.
subcommittee?
Me too.
I'll be happy to do it. I'm not on it.
Right.
Okay. So,
I
Vice,
wanted to, Chair, may I just say, when is the complainant still on?
yes,
I just wanted to make sure that she understands that we are a completely independent board. And I thought I understood her to say your policies, these are police department policies, and we're the oversight board that's completely independent from the police department, so I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay, so it's not a direct question, more of a clarification. Okay, perfect. Okay,
And this may take us into our, I think perhaps the final open session agenda items, which I asked for. I'm trying to scroll up through the agenda. So I can't, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Let's-
We are looking at 11F, which would be new business, and it is PAB Charter Rules and Policies. Overview of PAB roles and responsibilities and
Okay.
discussion.
Perfect, because this relates to the last item, and then, I think it's good segue to this one. So we decided that we're going to take on this policy review. What exactly is going to happen? Like, we had a threshold question, are there any policies at issue? Right, so does staff then reach out to the department and say what policies are at issue in this complaint, or do you have all the policies and flag them?
We do the grunt work. So we find the policies, we flag them, we go through the circumstances that are presented and see if there's anything that we can take a look at that has an accountability or transparency element.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, sorry, I just thought it would sort of take it into the next item as well, it's related to the last one, I just wanted to get concrete what next step.
I think,
So we'll set meeting for.
And it could be at some point. So policy complaints and reviews are a small section of our standing rules, and it may be at some point we need to expand on the, our standing rules regarding policy reviews.
Well, now that it's our focal point.
There's something else to do.
I think if we're on this item,
Let's go.
and we'll let board member Wilson clarify, but it is our understanding of this item that there is sort of a need to codify a little bit more beyond the accepting of a complaint. And I'll let the director pitch in on this as well in terms of how does the board envision that process being taken? Just so that we make sure that as an office, as a board, as the public, as the department, we all sort of know what the expectation and the outcome would be in terms of moving forward with our policy complaints and our policy reviews and identifying those deliverables.
So it's just about policy complaint?
I think board member Wilson had a more broader picture.
Yeah.
If you'd like to elaborate.
Want to understand kind of the key pillars of our responsibility, the complaints about policy, and then the complaints about specific like officer conduct, what exactly our role is, what our authority is, what improvements could be made, just to begin that conversation. So that's what I was hoping for, just an initial, we have to spend a long time on it, and we're teeing it up for a bigger conversation.
Sure, and we could do some high level points on these different authorities, and so we have obviously the charter, we have the standard rules, and we have the regulations right now, interim regulations, hopefully soon final regulations. And all of those documents guide the work of the board. There's also actually the commission manual that also provides guidance on how the board meets and when they can meet, what committees. So those are the sort of guiding documents. There's also legal, within each of these different documents, there's also a legal authority like the Brown Act that guides the board. If you could advance to the next slide, please, which is again, going to be light on this. And also for the benefit of members of the public present and online. So again, those are the different documents that guide the work for the board. There's also the specific things that board member Wilson just said. Two main functions, although there's others, but the main ones are investigations of misconduct, of allegations of misconduct, and also the policy review. And for the policy review, for different reasons, we shy away from the word investigation. It involves legal language. But I think investigation in a broader sense of the word is an appropriate word to utilize, although the policy review process or investigation doesn't lead to disciplinary recommendation. So I think that's the important distinction between the two functions of the board.
And just a question, both of those, we can only initiate at the request of somebody else, or do we have our own authority to initiate?
For policy complaints, the board is actually allowed to initiate their own policy reviews.
You could advance to the next slide.
Later.
So again, the charter indicates the establishment and the purpose of the board and the office. Important distinction too, that where we're still in sort of a negotiation phase and understanding our each and respective roles. Before there was only the PRC, Police Review Commission. Now we have sort of hybrid entity that serves as oversight. So we have the office and the board, and there's different authorities and functions that each of them does, and they work in concert to be able to provide oversight to the city. And that's not necessarily unique to the city of Berkeley. There's different models of oversight that do have both an office and both a board. But some jurisdictions don't have one or the other too, so that's also important to notate. Some small jurisdictions may not have professional staff, and it's solely volunteers that are appointed by the elected officials. And conversely, other jurisdictions might only have professional staff and no board attached to it.
And does this board hire and fire a board position, or is it subject to city council or anybody else?
The board may recommend, but the council takes the ultimate decision.
For both hiring and yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Excellent.
Next slide. Again, the board powers, advise and make recommendations, review. And I think another important thing too, not only the written policies and practices, but also on budgets. The board has the authority to provide an overview of the department's budget. They review and recommend for city council approval of all agreements, letters, and memorandum of understanding or policies, and receive and consider the findings and recommendations of our office regarding complaints. Those are the incident complaints that a member of the public lodges against an officer. So that's the work that is the professional work that's produced by our office, being able to do those investigations. We have a complaint form for both the personnel complaints and both the policy complaints. But also as noted by our policy analyst, the board can self-initiate policy reviews when it seems that it's appropriate and necessary. Again, we just went through this process. So there's also the important piece of data review and analysis and collection, and that there is a provision within the charter that instructs our office to provide an annual report, and specifies these different criteria, the minimum that should be in that annual report.
And this is
One important piece too, in regarding the office of directors' ability is the training, and as a board member Leftwich indicated that there is required training that the board must undertake. The charter allows for the director to provide that training in conversation with the chief and the BPA. Next slide. Okay, so one of the important things I think we wanted to highlight in this overview, the personnel complaints process is clearly defined, and not only within the charter, but also the regulations. I think as board member Calawidi just mentioned, you have the regulations that oversee your misconduct complaints process, but there's no such document for the policy review process. Now you have the standing rule, but it hasn't been quite codified yet what that looks like, what the timeframes. That's a little bit more loose, and it's been I think from my observation, it's been guided by past practices, although it's forever evolving process. I think the more it's a case by case situation. So the more nuanced a policy review is, the more that guides the methodology of the board. I think that in conversations and observations and experience with other oversight bodies, that process has been a little bit more, I think, defined. And that's, I think, one of the negotiation pieces of what is your expectation of the office in that process. And so we can assist you. Again, we're here to provide administrative support. I had the opportunity upon a referral from our investigator to speak with the past policy director of the San Francisco Department of Police Accountability, Mary. And she just retired. She served 20 years there. And I was getting to know more about their process. And they had a very elaborate process for policy recommendations. I will make a distinction that their body has a provision for binding policy. So they can actually, whatever their commission says is the policy of the department. So in her process, though, she did a lot of stakeholder engagement. She went out and met with different community members, met with the police unions. It was a very elaborate process that took a few months, but it was, in comparison to our process here, it appeared to be more defined. In the DC model where I served, we had a sort of in-house process where the Office of Police Complaints had representatives from the investigative unit, our independent legal counsel, our research analysts, and our investigations managers. And we would all sort of have this informal staff committee, be able to review the policies, bring it forward to the board, and the board would adopt it, or they would make further recommendations or give different instructions to the office. So just giving just examples of how other jurisdictions are doing this work. I think as our policy analyst indicated, it could be beneficial for managing the expectations of the board, the office, the community, the police department to really codify this process a little bit more. It will be helpful for data process, for data collection analysis to be able to, again, have more strict or more defined, I don't want to stay away from more strict, but more defined process that will help for report writing purposes. So one of, the recommendation would be to create just a clearly more engaged process. I think that also it's an opportunity to revisit the ordinances. So the surveillance technology ordinance spells out some timelines. So that's, I think, one of the instances where the board is on the clock. I don't know how realistic it is for a truly engaged process to be done in 30 days. And if they want robust community engagement, it's not a realistic time frame. And I think that would also help the city council get a more polished product. As you may have known, they had a marathon session in the first review of the fixed surveillance cameras. They were timed out on the clock and had to put it on the next agenda. But part of that may be attributed to the fact that there wasn't enough stakeholder engagement that really analyzed some of these issues, and that could be done in more concert with the police department and the board if we allow this process to be, I think, more defined again and allow more time to do it in a thorough manner. Other things we have noted, as I think the board has also noted, there's some ambiguity regarding the legal counsel. There's a whole subcommittee regarding that. There's some issues that we had and experienced regarding access to records, whether there's a distinction between the policy review process and the misconduct investigation. So those are the kind of areas that I think would benefit from further clarification.
All right, thank you. Great presentation. Board Member Wilson, you wanted to add something?
No, I just, in terms of this particular recommendation about fleshing out the process for the policy review, is that something that there's a subcommittee on that, or are we working on it?
This is new, so no subcommittee as of yet.
Okay,
Are you making a motion?
well, I'm not a huge fan of all the stuff.
I know you're not. That's why I'm giggling.
Yeah, I don't know if other people think it needs to be done in a subcommittee, or we can work on that full body, or I don't know, or what staff think.
What if staff came up with a couple different proposals and we took a look at it and maybe, started a conversation from there? I'm sure you guys would like to get on this from your office as well, right? I mean, you guys have some,
We're happy to review it,
Excellent.
after it comes out of the director's office.
sounds perfect.
And then the annual reports, has this officer filed one or two?
No, there was a director, my predecessor, Kathy Lee. She produced a sort of a summary report on her tenure during the PAD. But the PAD and ODPA proper has not produced a report yet. We have been telling the story, so to speak, of the transition between the PRC and from the PRC into the ODPA and PAB. We are trying to get that to the hands of the city attorney, because the charter does require a review before it is publicly released. So we are in the process of doing that. And so we'll be able to, hopefully by the summer, be able to have that out.
Has it already come to the board?
And in the city attorney could opine on this, but it has not come to the board. From the charters, my understanding charter, it goes to the city attorney and they will review it and.
Oh, it doesn't go to the board at all?
It comes to the board after review by the city. So the director's office produces it, sends it to the city attorney's office for review. After we review and provide the feedback, then the director will finalize it and receive it.
I was talking about the annual report.
Yes.
That's in the charter.
Yeah,
So we don't even get to see it before you guys make your edit.
So we will do just a legal review for confidentiality and make sure that it doesn't disclose any information, that it's not, because it will be a public facing report. The main purpose of our review is to ensure that there's no information in there that cannot be public. We don't need to do what I would call a substantive review. It's more just a compliance legal.
But to answer your question, annual reports have been were institutionalized in the PRC and will be here going forward as well. So there's always an annual report.
Okay, no, I was just looking on the website because I think this group we've been in existence for more than a year.
Yeah, we're late.
So I was just seeing if it was posted, that's all.
and just for context, it covers, so it's this really weird transition where technically the first year of the Police Accountability Board, the first 6 months were still technically the PRC. And then the second month was like the PAB, and then we have our data from 2022. So it also embodies those last 6 months of operations and its transition into the current system. So it's also taking us a little bit longer identifying the new charter requirements compared to the PRC. So some of those databases didn't quite exist yet. So
Super, fair enough.
Okay.
With that, I'm gonna go ahead and move us to public comment, agenda item number 12.
Clarify one thing, and I had raised the idea of alternates for the subcommittees, and I know the city attorney's office is gonna look at that. Should we tonight, say the city attorney says, no problem at all, do we need tonight to appoint alternates? I really just want to keep things moving.
I totally
Or do
understand
we
that.
need to wait
I
until
think
we
we
come
should-
back in 2 weeks? And
I think
then-
we should wait for 2 weeks just to make sure our ducks in a row. I'd hate to have anyone complain that we did something inappropriate in a subcommittee and we get smacked around for it.
Okay.
That would be my thought.
it's a public comment.
Yes.
Okay, so before we go into closed session, I would just like to open it up to any members of the public, either physically present or virtually to speak. I'll start with folks physically present. Is there any public comment before we transition over? Okay, so we'll now go to our virtual speakers. Former Director Lee, you have been given the floor.
Thank you very much. I wanted to make a couple more comments, but when I was speaking earlier, but since they didn't pertain to Ms. Martinez, I thought I would model good meeting behavior and wait until this public comment portion. I wanted to welcome Investigator Jason Wechter to the staff. He is somebody who I have met and gotten to know through the NACOL conferences and other regional activities. I believe he's a very able investigator, and I'm happy to see him on your staff now. I also want to welcome Board Member Wilson to the board, who I do not know personally, but I see that she brings with her a wealth of relevant experience and skills. So I think she will be a very valuable addition to the board. And last but not least, I just want to thank the staff and the board for all the hard work that you continue to do. I know it's difficult being shorthanded in terms of the board, and that is very difficult. So I know that you're all working very hard, and I do appreciate that. And especially want to thank staff for handling hybrid, in-person, and virtual meetings, something I didn't have to deal with, and I think it's going pretty well. And also want to thank Chair Moore, who I think brings a certain joie de vivre to the meetings as chair that I had not seen in any previous chairs. So that's it from me. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let me. Oh. At this time, are there any additional members of the public who would like to provide public comment? Give it a few more seconds. Chair, at this time, I see no additional hands raised.
Okay, and that takes us to closed session. We will be in agenda item 13. We will be leaving the meeting.
Thank you.
And it will depend. For the members joining us virtually, you're allowed to remain in the webinar. Again, we'll be pausing the recording and turning off the camera for now. For those physically present, it's up to you if you'd like to stay here. If you'd like to listen to what happens afterwards, we can move up. If not, the last action will just be us announcing what happened in closed session very briefly. And these videos are posted online, so don't feel obligated to stay. Yeah, so with that, I'll go ahead and pause the recording.
We are back in open session. The board has reviewed and accepted with modification the report from the ODPA. And at this time, I would like to ask for someone to see this out. I have a one motion to adjourn.
Oh, stop it.
Excellent. Everyone, have a good evening. We are adjourned.
Yeah.